And so when you submit, you're saying, not only do I care about, what happens to this community, I want to learn more and I want to support and do what I can to help improve things. And so that's really the benefit, I would say, when it comes to submitting.
Welcome to Spill the Ink, a podcast by Reputation Inc., where we feature experts in growth and brand visibility for law firms in architecture, engineering, and construction firms. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome to Spill the Ink. For our returning listeners, you may have noticed that I am in fact not Michelle Calcote King. My name is Steven Gallo, and I'm the Vice President of Client Services at Reputation Inc. And I'm really excited to begin sharing hosting responsibilities with Michelle starting today. Reputation Inc. is a public relations and thought leadership marketing agency for B2B professional services firms, including architecture, engineering, and construction firms. To learn more, go to rep-inc, that's inc with a K.com. Okay, so we have a really exciting episode planned for you today. Not only is it my debut as your host, but we're also kicking off a new series where we dive in to the creme de la creme of AEC awards and rankings programs. To kick us off, I'm excited to welcome Emell Adolphus from Engineering News Record. Emell is the senior editor of ENR Top Lists and Surveys Rankings, and he'll be sharing insights about the programs, as well as how to use that information to really guide your business. He has more than a decade of writing and journalism experience, and in fact, you may already be familiar with his work. In addition to managing ENR's prestigious programs, he also writes about technology, climate resiliency, and DEI for the magazine. Welcome to the show, Emell. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me. Big fan.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And for those who don't know you already, why don't you get us started by telling us a little bit more about yourself and your work at ENR?
Sure. So it's really been about 5 years in this position, writing about these companies. And in that time, I've really gotten to, with ENR's audience, really gotten to know the big players, the major players in each market, and when it comes to construction specialties as well. And so that's really the bulk of my work, and in writing about how these companies are improving, not only improving the lives of their employees, but also improving the collaboration with their clients as well.
Awesome. And when we're talking about, let's talk about these top lists, of course, because I know they happen year round, and folks are always curious about, okay, how do I get on these lists? How do folks show up there? So for those who are a bit unfamiliar, tell us a bit about what are they and why they've become so sought after of a ranking in the construction industry.
Right, so I'll just say for the record, the survey for this year is open. It's available at ENR.com. It's open, and the survey really, we look at the not only the regional level, but the national level as well. Things you may not know about ENR is that it's split up by regions, right? So there are lots of regional issues, but there's also an overarching national issue as well. And so the survey takes that same approach where we're talking to regional companies and we can get a sense of who the regional players are. And then from those surveys, we create a national list as well to see where those companies rank on a national level.
Got it. So does it start regionally and then among the regional ones, national are selected, or are they separate? How does that work?
So the regional feeds into the national. And so while you may be, let's say, number one in wastewater management at a regional level, that could change at a national level if in terms of if the company actually ranks on a national level as well, because it's a lot more competitive at a national level, I will say.
Understandably so, sure. Okay, so walk us through, I guess, that submission and evaluation process. I understand. So you collect both hard numbers like revenue, backlog, things like that, but also qualitative insights that aren't necessarily measured in numbers. So how do you balance those different types of data? Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, so in every issue, we really, I mean, there's the quantitative data, right? And that's presented with graphs and charts and that information, which is compared to previous years when it comes to that data scrape. But the qualitative information, it really is about telling the story. I mean, and for me, it's one of one of my favorite parts of the job is to really pour over thousands and thousands of words to see what the challenges are for these contractors and what the solutions are as well, and what they're facing. And not only what they're facing, but how they're innovating as well, creating innovative solutions, creating programs, creating new positions in reaction to what's happening in the market as well. So a sense of you really get a sense of I'll just say, you really get a sense of regionally what's happening, but also nationally to see if there is a trend that we can break
Mm.
out into the national issue as well.
Sure. Yeah. And that's a lot of data, a lot of
Mm.
words, I imagine. So, tell me a bit about how you and the ENR team ensure the accuracy, integrity of the rankings when you're getting so much data in your door.
So how do we keep everyone honest? That's the question.
Sure. Yeah. Right. It's a fair
So
question.
So without giving away too much of the secret sauce, I will tell you that we are backed by a team of professional journalists, right? So these are the regional editors. They're about, I want to say, all in all, with ENR staff, it's about 15 of us, including the people who work hard to keep the lights on, our sales team and our publishers team and events as well. But we keep everyone honest by with the submission process, we're able to really, I mean, we're all trained journalists and we're able to really look at the data that you're submitting to see how if you are a company that we write about a lot and the projects that you're taking on, that's usually represented in the data, right? So if you have X company and it just won this project award for a certain amount, that usually is reflected in the data somehow. Um, if we're finding that this company, there are companies that are coming out of the blue, and that might not reflect in our coverage of what that company actually specializes in, or the amount of work it should be getting in relation to its other competitors in the region, then that sort of gives us a little bit of a red flag that we should look more into. Okay, where did you have a special year? Was it a special private project you did? Where is this revenue coming from? So we have a team that really looks at the numbers and looks at the qualitative aspect of it as well to tell us, okay, this is a company that the team should be looking at because they're doing a lot more work, or this company's having some trouble. Why don't we actually, or having more challenges? Why don't we look into, why those challenges are happening in this region, or is it particular to this company?
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. And so it sounds like too, I mean, even if, a particular firm may be doing a lot of great work, but
Mhm.
aren't talking about it or no one really knows about it, sometimes again, that can be sort of a, "Oh, why haven't we heard about you?" So that's an interesting point too, that's sort of a factor in credibility of just how known you are and if you're out there. Is that fair?
That's a fair assessment, and I will say there are some companies, and we already know about them because we definitely are aggressive in our pursuit to get companies to
Mm,
submit data. There are some companies who do not submit to ENR, and they're, on our radar, and we know about them, and we sort of can triangulate the market split when it comes to companies in that market, right? So we know that, again, X company doesn't submit to ENR, but they do a lot of work in this sector. And so we can sort of triangulate and say, okay, it it appears that that work is going to that company relative to the other companies that actually submit data to ENR.
sure. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, okay. And you mentioned some of those folks who maybe firms that don't submit, or maybe they're thinking about it or on the fence or not sure. Um, how should these decision makers at these firms decide when they're ready to participate in ENR's rankings?
I would say you'll never fully be ready, right? We always sort of
Mhm.
wait to say, I feel ready now. You'll never fully be ready. The best course of action is to submit and start getting the process down of submitting and start thinking about what you want to offer when it comes to that qualitative data as well, because we find that, the first initial submission, companies really want to position themselves as sort of being perfect.
Mm,
Here's my revenue. We've had no problems. We're great at everything, etc. But some of our more veteran companies who have been submitting to us for a long time, they really know how to pinpoint particular challenges for us to pull out, because this is very much as much as it. as much as it is nice to be ranked and to be ranked at a higher level, this is very much about helping the industry as well. And you can't
Mhm.
help the industry if you don't actually talk about the problems and the challenges that you're having, or talk about the solutions as well that you're implementing. And so I would encourage everyone to submit early and submit often because it does help us. Even if you aren't ranked, it does help us and it will, put you into our cipher and for us to really be looking at you and talking to you about, the work that you're doing.
Got it. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, for those thinking I need to wait until we're performing at our peak to apply, no, not the case. I mean, my daughter turns 4 this spring, and so I'm still waiting to feel 100% ready to be a dad. And like you said, I don't know, I don't know that we ever, right, are ever 100% there. We get to
Never.
go for it. So okay, no, that's great. What about firms who perhaps they have applied in the past and submitted in the past, but they may be struggling, or they see, oh, did my ranking drop this year, and so they may be reluctant to sort of discuss that because they see that as, oh, we dropped in the rankings. What do you need to hear about those challenges that you mentioned, and how can firms be open about those difficulties in ways that actually benefit them? Because it seems counterintuitive.
Absolutely. I would say don't let a potential rankings drop um, deter you from submitting again. If you've been submitting for 10 years now and you think that your revenue is going to be significantly lower and you sort of want to pull back because you don't want to show that your ranking has dropped, don't let that deter you because 9 times out of 10, it is one of those, with the data together, we can pinpoint to one of those unicorn projects that, huge mega projects that's going on. And it just so happens that, maybe your competitor or other competitors in the region are on that project and you aren't or won some award. And so I would say don't let that deter you. Um, Keep submitting because the point is the data. The point is the data. The point is really learning from the data because you, as a submitter, will learn as well with access from the data, and you will also learn, you know, which projects are popular. You learn about solutions. You learn so much from your competitors, more so than for you to pull back and not actually submit.
Great point. Yeah, that benefit goes both ways. And I don't know if you can do this, Emel, but we're gonna see. If you, I guess, had one piece of advice, the most important advice for firms who are completing the survey, what would you have for them? Can we boil it down, or at least to or maybe a couple of the top things for them to keep in mind?
Yeah, I would say that the most important thing to think about is to be honest. Always be honest. Always, always be honest because you may think that one challenge of yours is unique or perhaps even embarrassing or something or maybe accomplishment is not big enough to be mentioned, right? Um, but you'd be wrong. You'd be surprising how wrong that can be because we've had really small, innovation I don't wanna say small, we've had minor innovations, right? Minor changes that have really become huge stories. I'm thinking about, um, Turner Construction, which is, one of the hugest firms,
Mhm.
out there, right? One of the largest firms out there, and, an adjustment they made, and I believe it was with DPR as well, DPR followed suit, adjustments they made on the job site when it came to facilities that are available. And you might think that big deal, it's a facility on the job site. But if you've ever been on a job site, you know that going to the bathroom at times can be a little uncomfortable when you have to squeeze into a porta potty, right? So
Sure.
we had a number of firms talk about how they changed, and this is the qualitative part, right?
Mm.
Um, we had a number of firms talk about how a change of facilities for their employees really made the difference in terms of morale. It really made the difference in terms of diversity and people having equity and feeling welcome on the job site because you have running water in these facilities. You have a place to sort of take a minute and do whatever you need to do in that space. When you have a porta potty, it's not the same, right? To
Not
sort of
quite,
get in and get
no.
out, not quite. But these are facilities that have heat, they have air conditioning, right? So
Mhm.
we all know um, without air conditioning on a really hot job site, it can really feel like you're in an oven. So we had firms separately, not together talk about this, but separately talk about these changes that they made
Mm,
with the bathroom facilities. And just reading that data, we were able to come up with a story about that and how that really improved mental health on job sites. It's a really small change, but it made a world of a difference for these firms. And so that's the kind of magic the survey offers when it comes to not only that data aspect, the quantitative, but the qualitative as well. To be able to really just see, what these people are, companies in different states are doing, and bringing that together into a story to highlight. That's really the
sure.
magic of it. And so being honest without, we wouldn't be able to do that if you weren't honest about it. And I would say also be honest about your challenges, right? So that's the job site facilities was a positive change that they made, but be honest about the what would be perceived as a challenge or a mistake or issue that you're having, right? And I'm sort of hinting at safety issues in
Mm,
that regard. Everyone sort of wants to put it out there that their firm is the safest, they never have any accidents, etc. But if you're having challenges with safety issues for a particular reason, that's important to know. And I put that, I say that because a couple of issues, I want to say last year or the year before that, we had a really great feature story about the accessibility of Narcan on job sites.
mm,
And, as you know, Narcan is used to revive someone who's had an overdose.
right.
And that has really, that accessibility and just having Foreman know that that is available on the job site really sends a message that not only are we thinking about that level of safety, but we want you to really show up in your best way, and we're thinking about that. It's not just about you getting the work done and, you know, getting the job done for that day. We really want you to show up in your best way, and we're really thinking about, if unfortunately, if an incident like that does happen, we're prepared to address that because we care enough about that as well. And so that's a part of safety. Just being honest about those types of challenges that can be particularly perceived as negative, in that way, because yes, we are a magazine and we do like to really uplift the industry, but the challenges are real and the challenges are difficult, right? And there's a reason why people have been historically reluctant to go into construction because they felt like it was like hard work and, the industry as a whole was just really hard work. We have to be honest. If we want to improve and recruit and retain new talent, we have to be honest about those challenges. And that's really why I encourage everyone to just be honest about the good, but also be honest about the bad as well.
No, I love that. I mean, yeah, those are great examples, and like you said, there are realities, right? It's not like we can, uh, ignore the realities, but a lot of times it's how are you addressing those challenges? How are you thinking
Yeah.
creatively, the solutions to be proactive to, with those realities, that, like you mentioned, tell a great story that you guys are looking for. So, um, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Okay. Last little maybe logistical thing with rankings and the lists for firms interested in participating for the first time. Perhaps this is a first year for them. You mentioned they're open now. What are some of the key dates they need to know? Where should they start?
So the really key date is the deadline for the survey to close. That's the key date. And if you are interested in participating, I will tell you now, and it's your first time, you can send me an email. That's ADOLPHUSE at ENR.com. You can send me an email and say that you're interested, and I will personally walk you through it because it's your first time. And really the key date is the deadline that it ends, and that is at the end of February, beginning of March, that we're going to start closing the survey. And so you really just need to be aware of those deadlines for it.
Awesome. And quite the offer from Emell there, folks. So, interested in learning more, reach out. Okay, so let's talk about not just the X's and O's of the rankings, but really getting the most value out of participating as a firm? We touched on this a little bit, but what's really the real value of participating in the rankings beyond just getting a number next to your name? I mean, you
Mhm.
mentioned not just the data you provide, but the intel you get back as a firm, right? I mean, is that, I imagine, a big part of it?
Absolutely. That's a big part of it, and, in terms of in terms of the benefits in that way, you really are joining a community, um, to submit is to not to be too after school special about this, right? So, it's I sort of equate it to when you run for office, when you run for local office, there is, a chance that you won't win. But that doesn't mean that it's not effective. That doesn't mean that it doesn't send a message to the people around you that this is something that you could do. You have different ideas. You want to, garner support for your ideas. I really equate it in that way because, like we talked about before, that potential, there's potential that you won't be ranked. But with that ranking and with that process, you're joining a community really that says, okay, I'm in this industry and I really care about helping others learn, helping us all succeed. Because really, one thing about construction is that if a state is doing, if everyone in the state is doing well, everyone, rising tide lifts all ships, right? And
Mhm.
so you're really joining a community to get that benefit of being in a community as well. You can't really learn alone. And so the construction industry is absolutely a community. And so when you submit, you're saying, not only do I care about, what happens to this community, I want to learn more and I want to support and do what I can to help improve things. And so that's really the benefit, I would say, when it comes to submitting. Mhm.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like you said, it's an industry-wide effort, really, right? And we're not operating on an island ever.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so and beyond the top lists, I know you also manage best projects, are involved with the Newsmaker Awards as well. So ENR has a couple of these programs. I'm curious how they work together and how can firms leverage multiple ENR programs? Can they?
They absolutely can, and I just want to clarify, I do not manage best projects, but we do have a trusted team of editors who do that managing for best projects, and the same goes with newsmakers. It's a team effort, and really, those projects really come from sometimes they come from our qualitative data as well,
Mhm.
but other times they come from, firms really just knowing about best projects, but not necessarily knowing about the other surveys as well. But the great thing about it is that we're all a team, and so when you have a particular transportation project or a building or a um, particular innovation when it comes to, a sustainable product, it sort of makes the rounds in this community that we have, right? And so we can, trace the sort of footprint of that project back to our different competitions. So off the top of my head right now, we're in the middle of our another contest we have, which is our photo contest, and this is where we have people submit different photos from job sites, and they've become really great about presenting construction work through a unique lens. It's not just, welding with sparks coming out, which is which we
Right.
get a ton of those photos as well. But this particular competition really presents construction work in a unique way, and we get tons of photographers working with different firms on different projects, right? And so eventually, through newsmakers, through Best Project, we start to see a pattern here where we see, okay, this huge mega project, this huge data center, we got a photo from that. We got a photo submission from that project. We got a best project submission. We got a newsmaker attached to that because someone, was helping to really shepherd that project through. So, really, I would say all of the all of the awards and submissions that we offer have that link to it, and we really start to pinpoint, each year, okay, what's the project that's really making news this year?
Mm.
What is the thing that, last year was heavily about data centers. That's why I bring that up. It was really a huge focus on data centers and building out that infrastructure, and the needs for data centers. And so I'm really excited what will be this year, to find out and to really look into that. But I would say all of them have a link, and you can absolutely leverage these surveys and rankings when it comes to, submitting for that ranking, and then looking at best projects. You can submit for that as well. And then you can have a newsmaker, which when it comes to newsmakers, it's really about the individual. It's not necessarily about a company wide. And so you can have someone really, I mean, it could be a full-time job, I'll say that. It could be a full-time job just having someone submit to ENR, I'll say that. Submit
Mhm.
for our different contests and rankings, definitely. But, that's the benefit, is that even if you don't, you know, from the survey that I manage, even if you do not place for that survey, there could be someone on your team, who did a fantastic job creating this innovative thing, and maybe they make a great newsmaker. And so there is that, there really is something for everyone when it comes to the project recognition and awards that we offer at ENR.
Yes, and every firm has these stories to tell, whether they think about it actively or not. And as you mentioned, right, that it takes time to dig those up and to find those stories and tell those stories and submit. But you also learn so much about your own company, and like you mentioned, the industry when submitting as well. So fantastic. Well, I appreciate you sharing a little bit about those other
Mhm,
programs. I'd like to maybe just bring us to close out from a higher level, if we could, a bit,
mhm,
because as you mentioned, right? I mean, you see a lot of data, a lot of these surveys from across a variety of firms in the industry. So naturally, you're seeing different patterns and trends emerge, I'm sure. And so while we've talked about how firms can leverage the rankings strategically, let's zoom out. What trends are you seeing that you're hearing from those firms who are submitting the surveys? What's sort
mhm.
of the latest that you've been tracking?
So the latest and the oldest, and I say that because it continues to come up every year, and that is the access to skilled labor. There is a huge, huge deficit when it comes to skilled labor, and it's only going to increase. It's only going to increase in the upcoming years, because now we need to do a data center build out. Now the focus is really on data center build outs, and that is a specific set of skills. That is a specific set of skilled hands you need to work on those projects. And so you're really going to see that need for more employees in the industry just grow. I mean, that continues to be the number one challenge for um, anyone in the construction cycle, right? From architecture all the way down to project delivery and handover. It's just the access of skilled labor. And so that remains a trend. I mentioned last year that data centers were really big, but also last year the idea of the mega project was a huge factor in our coverage, because mega projects is exactly as it sounds. They're mega and they need mega resources, right? Um, and then of course we have some of the things on the supply chain side, which you I I imagine you know where I'm going with that, and that includes talking about tariffs and talking about the
Sure.
new administration's trade policies as well, and sort of the confusion around that. So that was a huge trend last year when it came to people's concerns and challenges to really get it right when it comes to their project estimation and delivery as well. And so this year, it seems things have sort of quieted down, and it's important to note that with this year coming up, it's a mix. I would say it's about, when you look at our coverage, it's about 50%, 60% talking about last year, but then also going into this year. And so when companies are doing that sort of, they're giving us their data from last year, what they made last year. But when they're doing
Mhm.
that qualitative aspect of the survey, they're talking about not only the challenges and solutions from last year, but going into this year and what they're changing, what they're shifting, what they'll be investing in, and so there is where we can really take that and look at, okay, what's going to be coming up, and what are they worried about? Um, Particularly last year, of course, tariffs were a huge worry, but we do see that the overall consensus was that we're just gonna wait and see. We're gonna wait and see what happens. We're gonna wait and see and not really do too much drastic changes. So now we would be going on this sort of second year of wait and see. So I'm waiting to see how that strategy is gonna be changing for them.
Sure. Yeah. Uncertainty has, I think, been the name of the game.
Absolutely.
And if maybe if there's anything we can be certain about, though, despite that, I don't think AI is going anywhere, and therefore these data center projects probably anytime soon. But yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and like you said, is a little bit of kind of wait and see in a lot of respects now coming into this year. But as you mentioned, like looking ahead,
Mhm.
based on what you are seeing and hearing from contractors, any sense of what firms could be preparing for in the next 12, 18 months?
Mhm.
Again, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I guess from the ground and what you hear and see, what are you picking up on?
Well, it's that, I mean, I mentioned data centers, but you really sort of put a name to it, and that is the use of AI, um, and and how that's going to be really changing for the better, we hope, but also shifting the division of labor at different firms, right? So, using AI, not only are you building out AI infrastructure, right, with data centers and energy sources, but you're also a firm that's using AI, and so it's sort of like you're feeding into the thing that you're building right now,
Mhm.
and we're going to be seeing a lot more firms adapt that. Last year was really, it seemed about, of course, we always have our early adopters, right? But last year was really about experimenting and seeing how it can work for the firm because, it's we had companies definitely tell us that they don't want to, have technology for technology's sake. But really now, as they work to keep up with the amount of work that they have, I suspect that there's going to be a greater use of AI when it comes to company operations. And that's something to be excited about um, on my end, but it's also something that we're watching very closely to see, will there be, is it a pendulum? Is this AI thing going to be like a pendulum where it goes really goes one way when it comes to early adoption and everyone's talking about AI, and then will it go back the other way? It really, in that regard, I like to compare it to the trends that we saw around diversity, equity, inclusion, where we saw things go really hard one way. And for sure, there are still companies that are committed to that idea, and that's the way trends go, right? You sort of there are some people who are in it for the trend and then they abandon it, but there are also some companies that have really made it a part of the fabric of their company and are still very much 100% have 100% buy-in when it comes to that particular you know process or technology or initiative. And so we saw that with DEI, and I think we're going to see that with AI as well. I'm just waiting to see when that actual pullback, if it does come, it could come next year, it could come 5 years from now. But definitely, we're watching to see how AI is going to be changing not only operations, but the priorities of this administration, local priorities as well. So as more and more people use it, the need for data centers and this build out increases. So
Yeah, absolutely. They are infrastructure heavy, energy hungry. It's definitely something we're going to be continuing to watch and evolve this year, certainly. Well, despite the uncertainty and a lot of the things that we're kind of waiting and seeing where they go, if you could give, I guess, one piece of advice to construction firms really navigating the volatility right now,
mhm.
what would that be from your perspective?
So I can only give you what other companies have told us, right?
Fair.
And that has been to diversify your business, your portfolio to diversify. Um, and that works. That's a double-edged sword, right? Because if you're really good at, telecommunications and you're really great, if something happens, maybe tariffs affects those materials, right? There's a chance that you're going to be really caught with some challenges, right? But there's also the benefit of you being this expert and very well known at, for example, telecommunications. And so it's a double-edged sword, and we're seeing companies take both approach when it comes to their advice on combating volatility. They're saying, okay, we're pulling back on diversifying our portfolio and doing the things that we know we do really, really well. And then we have other companies that say, this particular part of our business is strong and it's been strong for a while, but we sort of want to take insurances by dipping a toe into another market and shoring up that. And and then we have other companies that say, this part of our business is strong, we'd like to diversify, so we're just going to go ahead and buy another company. And that's one way of combating volatility as well. And so I really think it depends on your region. It really depends on your region and the type of work you specialize in. Because, of course, if you're a contractor in California, it's a lot different from being a contractor in Alabama, in Florida. Different sectors are going to really have their ebbs and flows according to the region. And so I think you really have to look at that regional point of view when it comes to combating some of the ebbs and flows of the market.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. Well, Emel, this has been really great. And as we wrap up here, and speaking of what we're waiting and seeing and looking ahead to, tell us a bit about what's next for you, and perhaps any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with.
Okay, so what's personally next for me, there's about a 6-month block coming up where I am completely just busy producing huge overviews for our ENR print issues, and those are available online. And so, in these overviews, that includes the quantitative data, that includes the qualitative data as well. But adding to those overviews this year, we really want to continue the conversation online. So, we're going to be launching a podcast where we're talking about different company execs. We're talking with company execs about their company operations and innovation and the challenges and solutions that they're seeing in their market as well. And so we're going to be adding that podcast with the overviews that we publish as well. So you can look for that online. And in terms of our team, we're really going to be working to formulate different data sets as well. So when I talk about our team, that includes a gentleman by the name of John Keller. That includes one of our newer members of our team, Jack, as well. And we're going to be working together to really rework how we present different data sets from that data as well, because there's only so much room we have in the print issue, but online we really want to see if there is an interest in a different slice of data and just according to what we can actually produce with the data that we have. And so we're going to be really looking at that to keep it fresh for our subscribers and our audience, and to ensure that we're just giving everyone the tools, a tool that they would find useful when it comes to making decisions about their company. And so that's what we're really tackling this year. And of course, in between looking at, the standout stories, looking at programs as well and initiatives that we want to highlight and other issues as well. But those are the two things that we're really excited about this year.
Awesome. Well, that's great. A lot to look forward to, and we'll stay tuned on that podcast forthcoming. So that's excellent. Well, thank you again for your time today. We've been talking to Emell Adolphus of Engineering News Record. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope to connect with you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Spill the Ink, a podcast by Reputation Inc. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.